Somebody from Woodbridge. Huh?
All right, we are now live.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dr. Byers. Okay, I'd like to call the Amity Regional Board of Education meeting to order for Monday, May 10th. Time is 6:35. First order of business, if you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is approval of minutes. The first of the two is the Board of Education regular meeting from April 19th, 2021, found on page 4. Would someone like to make a motion to accept those? Mr. Cardozo, thank you. Move a second. Mr. Howard, thank you. Any discussion? Right, seeing none, we can call the roll on that.
Mr. Belfonte?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo? Yes. Ms. Carlson?
I'm staying. I was not here then.
You can abstain. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Abstain.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. McCrevin?
Yes.
Dr. Turner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That motion passes. The next one is the Board of Education Annual District Meeting on May 4th, 2021, found on page 14. Would someone like to make a motion to accept those? I'll make that. Mr. Howard, thank you. We have a second. Mr. Brown, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll.
Mr. Belfonte?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Abstain.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Abstain.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Abstain.
Ms. McCrevin?
I'll abstain.
Dr. Turner?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. That passes. Okay, moving on. Recognition of students. We have a couple of awards to discuss. Byers.
Yes, so we have 2 awards to present virtually this evening, and hopefully our students and their families were able to join us in the live stream. The first will be the K Student Leadership Awards, and we have with us this evening Mrs. Burke, Dr. Tracy, and Mrs. Mann to present the awards to our students tonight. So Mrs. Burke, do you want to begin?
Great.
So I have the pleasure of introducing 2 students for the K Student Leadership Award. Again, the focus of the Student Leadership Award not only looks at students' academic performance and engagement in the school community and beyond, it also looks at that leadership quality that students begin to exhibit, especially at the middle school level, when they start taking ownership and leadership both within the school and outside of the school. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Maya Remigio. Maya is an 8th grade student at Amity Middle School, Orange. I first met Maya when the school closed, when we had the shutdown, and we were preparing to welcome our 7th grade students, our incoming 7th grade students, and we needed to make videos to make the students more comfortable. And so I asked Maya to please participate in that, and she was one of the few students that volunteered and happily did a little promo on student lockers and transition to middle school. So even then, as a 7th grade student, she had already started to demonstrate that leadership ability. Needless to say, she maintained high academic standings throughout her time here at Amity Middle, and she is known for being kind, positive, and a wonderful role model to her peers. So congratulations, Maya. The next student that I'm pleased to recognize, again, when you go back and look at what teachers had to say about him, I can see that the consistent things that came up were the idea of reliability, consistency, and integrity. Robert Cooley is an 8th grade student at Amity Middle School, Orange. He is determined to earn good grades and strive to do his best academically. He demonstrates leadership not only in his academics, but also on the sports field. He is an avid baseball player and was looking forward to participating on the Amity Middle School baseball team last spring, but is truly looking forward to the coming year where he can once again participate in sports, hang around with his friends, and really enjoy high school. So congratulations, Robert Poole. Thank you.
Tracy, go.
All right, we have two students also. The first student, Liam Coyne. Liam was recommended or nominated by the Gold Team as this year's CAVE winner. He's an exceptional student who takes his learning very seriously. He's a leader both in and out of the classroom. His respectful participation and compassionate nature allow him to facilitate collaborative leadership amongst his peers, and he pushes everyone to take an active role in the classroom. His interest and intrinsic motivation led this year to the creation of the stock market club at Amity Middle School back then. He was one of my first kids that wanted to start his own club at the school, where students can learn about stock market and investing. Outside of school, he's an active member of the community. During COVID, he assisted his brother with their own PPE drive for the Columbus House in New Haven. He collected needed supplies for those without homes. He's also an avid squash player, competing with the U.S. Junior Squash tournaments in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, and Rhode Island. And his outgoing and compassionate personality, along with his strong abilities as a student, truly represented what an Amity student being his best self. The other student to present is Hannah Guo. Hannah was nominated by the Black team teachers. Hannah has maintained strong grades throughout her time at Amity Bethany. She's an enthusiastic learner, and she leads class discussions and offers very insightful comments during class. Her enthusiasm for learning and her commitment to the classroom community offers a strong example for others to follow. Last year, as a 7th grade student, she was our PTSO student representative. Outside of school, she competes in gymnastics and plays the piano. She's been doing Excel gymnastics for the last 5 years. 2 years ago, she won first in her age group at the state championships and went on to the New England regionals, where she won 3rd place overall in her age group. She's also an accomplished musician and has been playing piano for 6 years now. She's currently on a level 7 of the RCM music program. And in this program, she scored a 93, which is ranked first in honors with distinction. So congratulations to the two students, Liam and Hannah from Amity Bethany.
All right, good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I would like to note that each one of our students being recognized tonight are exemplars of our Amity community. And I'm reminded of the work that we are currently involved in with building our portrait of the graduate, and cannot help but think of how each one of these individuals could serve as a model for our school and local communities. So our two students from the high school for our CAVE awards are, the first one is Audrey Marin, who is currently, these are all juniors for us, all 11th grade students. So Audrey has consistently taken the most rigorous courses available to her and has earned a spot, and this has earned her a spot in the top 1% of her graduating class. She's interested in pursuing a career in the STEM field, and while she enjoys all of her courses, she is drawn to chemistry and mathematics. Audrey is a very successful soccer player and served as the captain during her junior year, and track and field athlete. And she has a plan to play soccer at Dartmouth College after graduating from Amity, where she will pursue her studies in STEM. Audrey is also the news editor for the Trident newspaper, is a co-author of our weekly Student Happenings newsletter, and this year assisted our career coordinator by conducting interviews with professionals in various careers in preparation for our virtual Career Day project. She is an active member of the Amity Student Government and is the president-elect for next school year for student government, is a peer tutor, a link leader, and currently serves as vice president of the junior class. Audrey is a participant in our science research program and has been working on a project on colorectal cancer with a researcher at Yale for the past 3 years. In her spare time, Audrey volunteers at Massaro Farm and also enjoys running and skiing with her family and friends. And I admire Audrey because of her innate interest in learning for learning's sake. She is sincere and authentic and a pleasure to work with always. So congratulations, Audrey. Our second student being recognized for CAVE is also junior Colby O'Connor. Colby is a go-getter who looks for opportunities to grow. He has taken and excelled in some of our most rigorous courses at Amity, including numerous AP courses and science research. He has a strong work ethic and an enthusiasm for learning and experiencing new things. He approaches his extracurricular involvement with the same unbridled energy, giving 100% to all that he does. A 3-season athlete, Colby is a member of the Amity cross country team, basketball, and lacrosse teams. But lacrosse is his greatest passion. That's where he is tonight, actually, at a lacrosse team. Colby also has a passion for inclusion and creating an equitable school community. This year, Colby has been a member of the CIAC Student Equity Advisory Board as a representative of Amity. This experience has allowed him to work with students from other schools while discussing equity in athletics and the school communities from different perspectives all over the state. Colby's involvement in clubs and committees is extensive, and he has emerged as a leader in many of them, including Diversity in Action, of which he's co-president, DECA, BBYO, and Student Government, and he is the vice president-elect for next school year. He's also involved highly in Principals Committee, in the School Climate Committee, JSA, Junior States of America, Junior Class Council. He is a Junior Class Council treasurer, and he's also a link crew leader. He is a very visible and active student at Amity and is incredibly deserving of this honor. And on a personal note, I worked closely with Colby throughout this year particularly, and have been impressed with his resilience and determination. It is encouraging to have the opportunity to engage with such a tenacious advocate for positive change. So this is well deserved, Colby.
And then we also have the superintendents.
Yes, the SCASA Superintendent Student Awards. Traditionally, this has been an event that the students are invited to for a lovely luncheon with their families. And this is the second year where we have had to not hold it in that manner, but instead recognize the students here at the board meeting. So Dr. Tracy, would you like to start us off on this group of individuals?
Sure. I'm still holding out for that lunch, though. We have 2 students to bring forward to you as our selections for this award. In the 8th grade, one student that we selected from Team Black is Adam Fleischman. Adam is a leader in the classroom and has maintained strong grades at his time at AMSB. He's a diligent student, and the care that he demonstrates for his learning is evident in the work that he produces. Kind of like Ms. Mann was just mentioning before, he learns for the sake of the love of learning. He's a role model for his peers through active participation in class discussions, and he is always actively engaged in class activities. In addition to his academic achievements, Adam competes on the community swim team and is a bassoon player. He also demonstrates a commitment to his community. He helps with his synagogue's gift shop website and is a great example of what it means to be Amity. Adam is awesome, his teacher is right. And I agree, he's a great guy. Our other student is Holly Parody. This student was nominated from the Gold Team teachers. And they say Holly is a hardworking student who consistently puts forth her best effort in everything that she does. Despite the global pandemic, Holly continues to be an active member of her school community. She's always willing to help a classmate understand a concept, work in groups, and help kids that are struggling. In addition, she's involved in the diversity club at school. In 7th grade, Holly played in the AMSB basketball team. Outside of school, Holly plays both premier and travel soccer and basketball. She's a wonderful young lady who embodies our Be Amity model. Her outstanding and friendly personality, along with her strong abilities as a student, truly represent Amity student being her best self. For these qualities, we believe she is a deserving candidate for the SCASA Award. Thank you.
From Amity Middle School Orange, we are pleased to introduce the 2 SCASA Superintendent Student Recognition Awards. First, I want to recognize Matt Curley. Matt Curley is an 8th grade student at Amity Middle School Orange. He has proven to be a leader in the classroom and a role model for other students. He is often the one to keep other students on track while within the classroom, and is always willing to help out and encourage other peers. He is a positive asset to the school community. Matt has been involved through youth organizations in town. He often takes jobs helping out members of his community with work such as snow removal and yard work. Matt has a passion for cars and enjoys working and fixing them. He wants to pursue a trade in the area of automotive or collision repair as a future side trade connected with his academic skills. In his free time, Matt enjoys hanging out with friends and biking. He is also involved in baseball, and up until the school closure, he also was planning on trying out for the Amity Middle School baseball team. I personally have worked with Matt all year. He's in my advisory group. And again, I can attest to the accolades from his teachers. I find him to be upbeat, positive, and certainly engaged with the school community. So congratulations, Matt. The second student that we are recognizing is Olivia Perkowski. Olivia is also an 8th grade student at Amity Middle School Orange. She is a strong student and leader in the classroom, serving as a role model for her peers. She is dedicated and driven to working at her highest potential academically and is not afraid to try new challenges. Again, when I go through looking at report cards and comments, some of the words that continuously came up in her time here at Amity were effort, diligence, persistence. So in addition to setting high standards for herself, she is certainly proven to be a hard worker who understands that sometimes it just takes a little more diligence to really accomplish your goals. Olivia contributed as a member of the AMSO Drama Club, and she is also in the Strings program. She participated in the regionals for 7th grade choir, and she is on the ARAC swim team and participating in diving lessons with the hopes of joining Amity's high school swim dive team next year. Apart from her academics and extracurricular activities, Olivia is an active member in her Polish school, where she is involved in various community service projects and opportunities. Olivia is always available to help out with service through her church. In her free time, Olivia enjoys spending time reading a good book. Congratulate Olivia Perkowski.
Right, and our final, last but not least, 2 students tonight are Jane Whitman and Nolan Young. So Jane is a bright and caring student who continues to excel at Amity, both academically and through her and extracurricular activities. She earns strong grades in high-level classes and is also involved in a variety of things at school and in her community. Jane is a key member of the Amity girls basketball team, serving as captain during her junior year, and is also a member of Amity's swimming and diving team. She is passionate about raising awareness for mental health struggles, particularly with athletes, and is asked to collaborate with me on working to address these concerns on a school-wide level. Outside of school, Jane can often be found volunteering in a variety of settings, most notably through her annual personally created fundraiser called Hurricane Jane's Ice Cream, where she packages and sells ice cream each summer to raise money and buy bikes to gift anonymously to children for the holidays. Jane started this fundraiser when she was 10, and those of us in Orange have probably seen it around, and it has grown each year, raising over $2,500 last summer. Jane is a kind, driven, and thoughtful student who has a great future ahead of her. And from my perspective, Jane is a student who demonstrates composure and grace. She is willing to advocate for herself and stand up for her peers when she sees them in need. We're so proud of you, Jane. And Nolan Young is a natural leader who stands out both in and out of the classroom. Academically, Nolan has been successful in many challenging courses throughout his time at Amity. He is an exceptional writer and won a local essay contest last year, as well as a genial and uplifting person just to be around. Outside of the classroom, Nolan is the captain of the Amity swimming and diving team. He is also a theater performer. He has leading roles in the Amity plays and musicals, as well as having a role in this year's musical at Laurelton Hall. Nolan also stands out as a link crew leader, helping with our 9th grade transition program. In the summer, Nolan volunteers his time with programs such as Summer Sidekicks and I Can Bike, 2 programs that work with special needs students. With his caring nature and desire to help others, Nolan hopes to go into a career field where he can serve others, such as being an APRN. We have no doubt that he will find great success in all that he does. And I have known Nolan for many years and have always been impressed with his affable demeanor. He is a team player, even in activities that may seem less reliant on team. And he brings a sense of community and positivity to any group that he is working with. I'm thrilled to be able to present Nolan with this recognition. Congratulations, all students.
Thank you, administrators. We appreciate all the kind words and the information you share with us. Congratulations to all the student winners. Moving on, we have the student report. I believe Allison and Caroline are with us tonight. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. So we're going to start off with the high school. So students were especially grateful for their teachers last week during National Teachers Appreciation Week. Students helped create personalized words for each teacher, along with a banner thanking them for their continuous support and dedication throughout the year. AP exam administration began on May 3rd. Many students have participated in the first wave of exams, which are all in-person administrations with paper and pencil. The next wave of administrations are soon to follow and will be conducted remotely. The week of April 26th, Amity High School recognized Pride Week. A major theme was prioritizing education regarding LGBTQ+ history, current events, legislation, and terminology. Students were encouraged to check out at Amity Pod on Instagram and participate in the organization's planned activities. Seniors participated in Senior Spirit Week last week. Seniors dressed up in different outfits that corresponded with the theme of the day, and these themes included College Apparel Day, Tie-Dye Day, and Twin Day. And seniors participating in SSLP or SIP are currently in their final week of high school. They're working to finalize all coursework before Friday and are looking forward to their internships and research projects.
Okay, hello everyone. So at the Amity Orange Middle School, students collected over 800 pairs of socks to be donated to homeless shelters in New Haven. The raised box of socks collected socks throughout the Amity community. Collection boxes were also set up through the local area. AMSO students would like to extend their thanks to all of those who supported this project. Additionally, Amity will be sending one team to the Connecticut Middle School Debate League Championship on May 22nd. 2 students from the Orange Middle School and 1 from Bethany qualified to participate. A total of 29 teams throughout the state will be participating as well. Mrs. Burke and Mrs. Remigio met with incoming 7th graders from the Orange Elementary Schools. Q&A sessions with each of the 6th grade classes gave students the opportunity to learn about the middle school program and to help them transition to the middle school. At the Bethany Middle School, 7th grade students participated in Nature's Classroom on Wheels program this week. Students are engaging in team building activities and are forming lasting positive memories. A few weeks ago, the 8th grade students participated in this program and reported having a wonderful experience. The 8th grade will take their annual trip to Holiday Hill on June 2nd. The day will be filled with food, fun, and outdoor activities. Lastly, a group of 7th and 8th grade students were selected by our teachers to participate in the ADL Bystander to Ally training on May 25th. That concludes the student report.
Does anyone have any questions for our student representatives? Thank you both for your reports. Okay, moving on to public comment. Ms. Eichler was unable to make the meeting tonight, so I'll summarize the comments we did receive. The first one is from Aaron Williamson and Asher Marks. It was explaining that they voted no on the Amity budget referendum. They had heard concerning stories from parents and students about racism and intolerance. They were imploring the board that we are responsible for what happens next. And they were asking that the Amity Board of Ed needs to work with Superintendent Byers to create a multi-year strategic plan with measurable goals of how the student will address diversity, equity, and inclusion. The second one was from Ms. Chandra Prasad. She wrote regarding that she's concerned about fairness and equity in the schools. She's asking that whatever the administration has been doing over the past 3 years has not been sufficient or effective. She said we must do more. She was questioning whether or not we can look into hiring a diversity consultant such as North Haven High School has. And then there was one from Emily Melnick and Matt McDermott. And they were also saying that they voted no on the Amity budget referendum. They're concerned with what is happening at Amity High School regarding racism and tolerance. And they were saying that we are, as a board, responsible for what happens next. And that all of the children in our community deserve a safe and nurturing learning environment in which they can thrive. Then there was one from Sherry Storigard and Matthew Storigard. And they were talking about just the general nature of racism and bigotry, and they think that is apparent in our school community. They also applaud the Board of Ed's efforts, and they're grateful for the tremendous amount of work that has gone into keeping our schools open and safe for our children during COVID. They are still concerned with racism, diversity, and inclusion, and they said we have a moral obligation to act on this now. Then there was, last but not least, from our fellow board member, Sheila McCrevin. Sheila is in this letter resigning from the Amity Board of Education as a result of the fact that she was elected on May 3rd to the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen. Congratulations, Sheila. And she's asking that we do a board self-evaluation and a superintendent evaluation before June 30th, which we can talk about later. She said part of the reason she's stepping down, although she could stay on in both roles, is to make room for community members who wish to step forward to serve and lead. Sheila has been with us for 7 years on the board, and she is still excited to contribute to many different ideas and topics during her last couple of months on the board. So those are our public comments. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
So we're actually in, well, because I had hoped we would have students, but they are all at rescheduled athletic events this evening. So the first item will be the discussion and possible action on a diversity in action signage. There's a memo on page 18 of your board packet. This proposal, Mrs. Mann brought this to me back in early spring. And we gave it some consideration. I think the big difference between this and something else that we would typically do is most of the time we hang signs up and they're on the inside of the building, available to essentially our students and staff, but not really open to the public. It was my understanding that the proposal would actually be installed at least in one place on the outside of the building. And even though the board, there really is no board policy with respect to that, when we've had other outdoor installations like the flags on the light poles going up to the athletic fields, we've often brought it to the facilities committee and the board for your approval because it's now outside of the buildings. The diversity in action sign would read with the following statement: Amity Regional High School's administration, faculty, and student body are deeply dedicated to the advancement and inclusion of all cultures and perspectives. Upon entering this building, diversity shall be celebrated, encouraged, and protected. And then the construction of the sign would all be done in-house through our CTE department. So we did bring this to facilities, and it did move forward from facilities to the board with a couple of caveats. One of which was that perhaps students could present on the sign this evening. Since they can't be here, they put together a video that Mrs. Mann is going to show. And then the other was that we sort of had a mock-up or an idea of how large the sign was going to be and what it would look like. So I think we will also present that this evening as well. So Mrs. Mann, if you want to share your screen and.
Okay, Steph, we are ready. Okay. Let's give it a try.
Hi, I'm Julian Stevens, co-president of Diversity in Action Club alongside Chloe O'Connor. The Diversity in Action Club was created because we wanted to have a place where ideas of celebrating diversity and inclusion were cultivated. And we thought, what better way to leave our mark on this school than to have a sign that literally says it all. Amity High School strives for excellence in every aspect, and we thought, what better way to aid this pursuit of excellence than to take on the initiative of devising a fixture that represents Amity's core values, as well as Diversity in Action's core values. Alongside Ms. Mann and our club mates, we decided that respect and fairness were two core beliefs that would aid in the motivation for the statement. The motivating factor of our statement for the Diversity in Action is inclusion. And when you look at the sign, we want you to be remembered of Amity's mission for inclusion and celebration of diversity that the Bethany Orange Woodbridge community brings us. This is what makes us stand out from other clubs that would like to have signs in the school, because not only does it collide with our personal values, it collides with the high school's personal values, and we would love to make a visual representation of that. The details of the sign will be, there will be two signs measuring 22 by 24 inches. The first one will go in the front of the school under the facade, and the second one will go as you walk into the back entrance. The two signs will be made out of AZAC materials that don't weather. The statement of the sign would read, Amity Regional High School's administration, faculty, and student body are deeply dedicated to the advancement and inclusion of all cultures and perspectives. Upon entering this building, diversity shall be celebrated, encouraged, and protected. The review process will encompass a biannual review. This will allow for the fixture to evolve for renovation, as well as the community to talk about whether there needs to be changes on the wording. This sign is for the community, so the community should have a say in how it is worded and where it should be placed. Thank you. Hi, I'm Julian Stevens, co-president of Diversity Action Club.
Okay, so he didn't actually include that, or it skipped over the part that it said that the sign will be 22 by 24 inches. And there will be two of them. And the idea is to have the one placed on the inside, which has kind of become another de facto entrance, main entrance to our school, toward the at the back where the athletic entrance. But the one that will be outside would be just underneath the overhang, near, in the just outside the vestibule, but outside on the side of the building. So that's their proposal. And as I said, or as Dr. Beyer said, Julian and Colby presented this idea to me in February, maybe end of February, beginning of March, and we talked about ways that we could kind of make this happen. And so that's there. And I do know Julian was planning on being here tonight, but he's also on the baseball team. Cheshire got rescheduled, so he's over at Old Tavern right now. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. I'm sure we have some. I know the facilities committee did hear some of this, not this presentation, but the gist of it. And I think Mr. Brown, Ms. Cardozo, you were there. There's definitely some concerns, some questions, and regarding policy and regarding precedent. And we got the answer tonight on the size and what it would look like. But we had some other concerns, I think, that you guys did as a committee.
Yeah, I think I mean, the wording is lovely, and the problem is that slippery slope idea of every group coming forward with a sign at some point. We have all kinds of signs inside the school, so the fact that it had to be on the outside of the school, which we generally don't do signs on the outside of the school, that was a concern. The sign on the back that would be inside the school, right? And so it's just the one on the front. And so we didn't have a sense of the size of it because it's a large overhang area. We didn't know about the weathering and other issues as far as that goes. 22 by 24 is relatively small. In fact, it almost seems like it would make sense to put it just inside the vestibule or the sally port. So but those were the things that we raised. And then also sort of, we don't have a policy. We looked at the policy we have for naming buildings, and that's a different story. And we don't really address this. So I think we definitely should look at our policy and develop something over time. I also know that these guys are seniors, right? And
One of them is senior, one of them is a junior, but yes.
So, and I also think it's a lovely message, and it's a great message. And so what I had suggested at the facilities committee was if we could just put some sort of a sunset period on it where we say, we make this motion and then it's approved for this period of time, and then we reevaluate from there on. And maybe that means it gets moved inside at some point, or it gets updated, or something changes, or something comes back to the board at some point, rather than a permanent approval, which is what I was concerned about.
Did we see something in there in our presentation about a biannual review?
Yeah, the review process that we had discussed was having to have a biannual review. Certainly, I talked to the students about what happens if we have to do a renovation to the building, and we needed to take the sign down, or we put it back up, that kind of thing. But even just to make sure that we are remaining consistent as we develop and evolve, with our mission and our approach to the graduate and all of that kind of thing. But I think that also with the size of the sign, there could be a discussion about where the problem with our main entryway is that there's no wall, so there's no place to really make it super visible. Whereas when you walk in with that big gray wall to your right, that's kind of the idea that they were thinking, that it makes it a little bit more, that it stands out a little bit more. So that was the idea. There were other ideas of having a floating ceiling and that kind of thing, but that would be a little bit cumbersome to try to get done between them. So certainly we're open to feedback of maybe moving it inside or looking for, we don't actually have the sign manufactured yet. We are going to be using the ASEC composite. And as Dr. Byer said, Mr. Rostowski is working with both these students to use our technology to make this statement. And so we can see once it is manufactured, we can present it. But the only concern is that that's the June meeting and June.
And I hear that. And I also, I know we can probably make it pretty quickly, but from a timing standpoint with our meetings, it just,
the meetings, right?
it doesn't work very well. I mean, I'm open to ideas, but what I was going to suggest is that if we make a motion to approve the construction installation of the sign until the end of next school year, including biannual review, which is what they suggested, but that at least gives us a period of time to work on a policy, think about it some more, see what we think about it, look at it, say, this makes sense, we like this, we don't like it, we get a sense of doing something in that time frame. That was my suggestion, was to put a little sunset on it, where we have the review, and then we look at it on an annual basis after that.
For most of you haven't heard of this yet, so this is the first time I know you're hearing about it. So if anyone has any other comments or concerns.
So just for clarity, Mr. Brow, is that actually a motion
So-
that you put forward?
So I'll make that motion, but I'm open to friendly amendments. So I move to approve the construction installation of the diversity in action sign at Amity Regional High School as presented until the end of next school year, 21-22. With possible biannual review if needed for moving or building or what have you. That would be my motion at this point.
So a formal motion. So is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Carlson. Now we can discuss that motion. Ms. Carlson.
I just wanted to commend and applaud the group and Mrs. Mann for taking it on. I think the messaging is inclusive and really beautifully crafted. And I think that's kind of just a lovely umbrella for all groups underneath. And I mean, I was expecting 22 by 24 foot sign. So that's why I was kind of like, so I mean.
We were given no measurements at and so I was also expecting 24 by 22, right?
Oh, anyway, so thank you.
Dr. Turner, I saw your hand go up at one point, but
Yeah, this might be a better longer term policy thing, but I feel that the concern that this might be a precedent for each group gets to stick up its own sign outside thing. It's different if it's an expression of the whole school's values and mission. And I'm just wondering if you could say a little bit about how this sentiment was like, did students have input into it outside the club? Is there a way that it's true that the student body feels that this represents them? Because if it is, I feel like that's not a precedent for every group gets to set up its own thing. It's a school statement of values and principles.
That's a good point, and this particular sign idea was not presented to the student body, but it is, we work the club, which is open to all students and has a membership of probably, I would say about, a couple dozen students ranging in all grades. They presented an idea to me, and then we went back and kind of looked at the wording and looked at the intention, and then aligned it with the mission statement of the school and the core values, as Julian mentioned, which are have evolved out of lots of constituency work and kind of vetting over the many years from when we started in 2012, 2013 to when it was adopted in 2016. Jason might remember, I think it was 2016 or 2017. And so that is reflective of it is very much in line with our mission statement and our core values and beliefs, which were vetted.
Okay, if so, I'm comfortable just with a biennial review. Is this still in alignment with our core values and beliefs and mission statement, rather than saying that we need to rework our policies? But if the rest of the board wants to look at policy, that's fine.
Thank you. Mr. McCrevin?
So I also think this is a lovely sentiment, and it's a gesture that I think is important, especially if it's coming from a student group. But I do also have a couple of concerns about what happens when the next student group comes with a message, and it is equally a lovely sentiment that we want to put up on a wall like this. So I do think the idea of aligning, as Dr. Turner just mentioned, with our existing, we sort of have an inclusion statement that's official. So having that on the wall is perhaps more in keeping with our policy. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is that, especially with a topic that is changing all the time and becoming more and more timely, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, we don't want to be seen as making a gesture to say, here, we're done. This is it. This is the sign. So I like the idea of a biennial look. And I wonder if we could also, like, not just look at the wording of the sign, but look at what the steps are that we're taking to make the words of those signs true in our hallways. The other thing I would just mention from a graphic design standpoint is 22 by 24 is small. That's the size of, like a lawn sign that you would see on someone's lawn, and you have a lot of words there. So in order for them to stand out, maybe going back to our standard diversity, equity, inclusion statement, that's part of the the motto of the school and what's been approved previously. It's perhaps shorter, and then we could take a look a year and a half from now or 2 years from now to see where we're at in a biennial review. Just some thoughts.
I could not see the video when the student group was speaking, so this perhaps was more clear then, but what's the reasoning behind having the sign be this small?
So I was speaking with Mr. Rostowski, and I think that the idea between the two signs, I mean, the one in the back we wouldn't be able to fit anything much larger than that in the back entranceway. It's just because it's going to be on that wall, and there are a couple other things, including some athletic presentations, as well as a water fountain. And so just in terms of space, that would be, where that is. And the other question was, we weren't sure whether it was going to be on the outside wall or in the vestibule, because we talked about in the Sally Port presenting it there or having it there. And that would not, originally the idea was a 24 by 36 sign. That would be awfully large in that smaller space. And so this was kind of the idea based on their manufacturing and not knowing exactly how the board would rule, and for consistency between the two.
Mr. Howard had a question.
I guess I'd just like to piggyback, possibly the statement could say something about, besides the administration, faculty, and student body, that the Amity Board of Education, that is also listed in that litany. And also just a suggestion that it's been over a year since I dropped a kid off at Amity High School, but there is a third entrance there really that a lot of kids stream in through. And I think if they see that there, no, not anymore.
Not anymore.
No, thank you.
Not anymore.
So,
Not this year.
That was just why I was wondering what this means. And then also here in page 19 of the packet, it had the Amity Finance Committee listed. And has this gone to finance yet, or?
No.
No, it went to facilities. That's a typo.
I think it's a typo.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Those were my questions and
Good
comments.
points. Yeah, good points. Well, there's definitely more discussion that is coming out, obviously, that we're all talking about it. So, I don't know if it's a sentiment of the board to, vote on it, or if we wanted to. talk
Is
about
Chris's
another
motion to have it outside, or, I think that's the kind of question that I have is, what signs do we currently have outside both the junior highs, or the middle school, I'm sorry, and the high school. Because if we're gonna do the high school, we should do the middle school as well, is my first take. My second take is, what signs do we have outside on the facilities currently?
I believe 0, it's the painting of the rock, which is probably the only like normal expression area, which is also, I believe, vetted before action is allowed, right?
Students have to, they have to be on student group. And
They have to make a proposal of what it is. Yeah.
So from a practical standpoint, I guess, me personally, I'd be okay with it inside the schools to start, and then have it go through policy and have something more concrete to look at and to stand the test of time would be what I would want to see happen. Our job is 3 things as a board. One is to hire a superintendent, which we do. Second is the budget, and the third is policy. Everything else we kind of stay out. I applaud the students for putting this together, but I don't like to put the cart before the horse, and would like to have this go to policy and discuss it and make sure that it stands the test of time. So, and then if we are going to do it, to have that at the middle schools as well.
Thank you. Any other board members have any comments or questions?
I took a look at the Amity website just to see if I could find that, what I remember to be our phrase or our statement regarding equity and inclusion. And I do see our mission, which is, it's a great mission. It doesn't mention anything about diversity, equity, inclusion at this point. And I'm not sure, I mean, one place we could definitely put a statement like this is our website, so that people have the opportunity to see it, not just when you walk into the building, but also when you dial into our website. But I kind of like the idea of perhaps getting this back to policy. I think I agree with you, Steve, that that's a good channel to take it, but to allow this version of it to be placed inside the school, I think is doesn't even need a board vote, I wouldn't think.
So how would you guys as a board like to proceed? Mr. Brown, would you like to amend your motion, or would you like to discuss it further?
I would be fine with both sides being inside the building. Once again, I don't think that needs our approval. So I would also be fine with putting it up outside for the next end of the year, and then decide on it. The problem I had was, if it goes to policy, it's not going to happen this year. No offense, George, you're very efficient, but it won't happen just because of the voting of the different days. And so if they were willing to make it, put it up, maybe by the end of this year, we have a policy around it, for going forward. But
It's possible.
I think it would, otherwise, I was trying to give us time to sort of work on a policy.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah.
I can certainly tell the students that we sign on the side.
Ms. Parra, we still have a motion on it.
We do have a motion at this point,
And seconded.
and it has been seconded, so we can either vote on the motion or retract the motion.
So I would say, if you, well, would we like an amendment of the motion to make it to the end of this year rather than next year, which would make it a shorter period of time, or would we just like to vote for or against that motion the way it stands? That would be my 2 choices.
Or the other option is just to rescind the motion, and if we're all in fair agreement here, it seems to be
And then it goes.
that it goes inside,
It
it's
goes
really
inside.
not a board decision for now, and then we can, grab it next month and start talking about it in policy.
Okay.
That may be the way to go.
So I will, yeah, unless somebody, yeah, so I'll rescind my motion.
And then could we also ask that someone revisit it at the 2 middle schools so that we have something similar? I'm not sure if the club doesn't exist at the middle school.
Well, I think the order of operations is really, if the motion's rescinded, the high school can install it and do what they want on the inside. The board would develop the policy that then would allow anything further going forward. So, and then at some point, if the policy works for us to even install the signs, then we can go back around with what gets installed or not.
And maybe the middle schools have a different message. Maybe they have different wording. Maybe they have a different club. I mean, I don't know what clubs they have.
Right, this is all new to us as a board, right? So, it needs to be explored, and going through policies probably.
I mean, I did write down a couple dozen students, and I know it's in line, but it is a smaller, subset of students, so. No, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Actually, wasn't that my pleasure. They did want to be here.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to letter B, personnel report, page 20.
So yes, you should have a personnel report. We have continued to have some changes in our staffing and the good news is we are actually hiring staff for next year. So it finally feels like we're looking forward to next year. I did want to make the board aware of a couple of just small changes, just in case you hear about them. The first is, and you'll see it later in finance, that Mr. Brandt continues to run a remarkable special education program, and we have more students coming back from out of district placements than we have already anticipated and talked to the board about. As a result, he will be able to reallocate some of the money in the IDEA grant and hire an additional special education teacher for Amity Middle School Orange, which is going to be needed as these students return and come back from the out of district placements. So there will actually be an addition of a staff member. The other thing is we will have some internal changes. When last board meeting, we had a reduction in course of Spanish. We didn't actually reduce that teaching position. Instead, that full-time teacher that proportionally has been reallocated to math and to the visual arts department in order to meet both graduation requirements as well as the student requests for some of the visual arts classes. And that's the summary of the personnel report.
Superintendent's report.
Yeah, so again, just a couple of things to point out during the past couple of weeks and actually continuing a little bit into this week, our students at the middle schools have been taking their mandated state assessments and the high school will be doing their science assessment for grade 11 as well. It was, as you heard from our student report, Teacher Appreciation Week throughout the district last week. And on behalf of the community and the Board of Ed, we do thank and appreciate the teachers for all the work that they've done. Whether it's a COVID year or not, they're really an incredible group of individuals, and truly they are what makes school the experience that it really is for our students. And so we did celebrate them. And then last, I'm very proud to announce that the Amity Gold Pen Awards were recognized last Thursday in a beautiful outdoor ceremony. And our three winners this year are Andrea Drury from Bethany, Eric Bassick from Orange, and Vicki Hulse from the high school. This is one of the more significant awards because they're completely nominated and decided by their colleagues and peers. And so it's truly an honor and a recognition for those three individuals. And then lastly, COVID-19 updates. So not much to share. I did send in the last board report that after our visit with the health districts and looking at kind of the structure that we would still have to go through for lunch, that would continue to be somewhat challenging for us to switch the high schools to full days, especially because the net gain would have been 9 full days of school. So kind of the trade-off just didn't seem to be worth the effort that that would have taken. We would have had to have a completely different schedule than what we've run in the past, to have smaller lunches so that we would be able to meet the requirements of the health district. The other challenge that we had, which I mentioned, is our after-school athletics. We still have locker rooms that are filled with classroom furniture, so we can have physical distancing in the classrooms. And so there would have been no place for our student athletes to change. And we really can't hold practices much later than what we are currently doing. So it just was logistically not possible, even though we did ask about that. And Mrs. Mann really, really wanted to have the students back for full days, but we just couldn't quite figure out how to pull that off. We are, however, approved for all of our end of year activities, and we will continue to work with the health departments just to get some of their guidance on some of the more unique features of running things like prom at the school in the middle of COVID and stuff like that. So, but we're doing well and approaching the end of the COVID-19 school year.
Yeah. Can you just touch base on the BODAC youth survey? I know that we've had this before, and I know that we've had some issues where parents have seen all the questions, and if a child answers no on a specific question, then there's a subset of questions that that child never sees. I personally think it's important for the community to get behind this and to encourage the kids to take it, because I think last time we had a lot of opt-outs, and I think one of the reasons was, again, that parents just saw all the questions, and again, if a child says no, then they're not asked different questions. But this is huge, I think, to understand our student population. So
yes, so so the BODAC survey, it's part of a grant partnership that we have with BODAC, and we've been surveying students in 7th, 9th, and 11th grade. Because that does allow us to look at a 3-year span as our students go through the Amity school district. And the questions do address sort of what we would call at-risk behavior. So whether it's behaviors around use of alcohol, use of cigarettes, use of nicotine products like vapes, use of drugs. We have also incorporated into the survey questions about mental health that we did the first time 2 years ago. And this year, they also included a few questions related around COVID and the students' experiences during a pandemic. The way that the survey was designed, Mr. DeMayo is correct. It would ask a very broad question like, do you use nicotine products? And if a student answers no, it just moves them on to the next section of the survey. If they answer yes, it drills down into more detail about what kinds of products, how frequently they use them, where they might be able to find or purchase or buy such products. But students don't actually get to those questions unless they answer yes. The administration of the survey is happening only in school because we didn't want a student to have to do that at home if they were a remote learner and have their parent kind of standing over their shoulder as they were completing the survey, because we would like to have honest answers from our students. And not only does the data help us with our programming and how we might address some of the concerns through our health classes, but it does also help the BODAC provide the community programs that they do for our students and our families outside of school. And so, so that is the survey. We did release it to parents so that they could view. There was an opt-out form that was available through PowerSchool if they didn't want to participate. And the administration of it is happening this week.
Regarding the COVID-19 update on the virus, I know it's probably too early to ask this question, but I'm sure board members are curious, and also the community. Has the state given any sort of guidance whatsoever as far as what's going to happen in August or September? Or am I asking?
No, that's the answer. They've not given us any guidance. Other than the statement that came at the end of April that they would not mandate remote learning as an option for parents, and that could be a local decision. That's the only guidance that we've received so far. I did participate in a webinar today related to the federal funding. And we will actually have to have something called a reopening schools plan in place by the end of June. But how that looks terribly different from what we are already doing, since we are already a reopened school. I'm not sure that that much will change at that point. So we will see where we are, probably a little more guidance, I'd say midsummer.
John, I thought we were gonna ask if there was any guidance for the, for next week on the 18th when things
Yeah.
Oh,
ease
yeah.
up a little bit. I didn't think you were gonna go all the way to
I
August.
went all the way, yeah. Looking forward to next year, so. Okay, thank you, Dr. Byers. Correspondence, did we have any correspondence, Ms. Farrow, Dr. Byers?
Yes, she sent you, I'm sorry, Ms. Perro sent an email today.
Oh, okay, I saw the public comment ones, but I didn't see the correspondence.
Yes.
Okay.
But we'll make sure that it gets distributed to the board since Ms. Eichler isn't here, but I believe there were 2, maybe 3 pieces of correspondence that came separate from public comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, chairman's reports, committee reports. So first, as far as from the chair, a few things. So we will be doing the annual review for Dr. Byers. As we know, the fiscal year is July 1st and 30th. So we like to do that in June annually. Last year, we were unable to do that for obvious reasons and had to push it to the fall. But we will be doing that. I will be sending some available dates out for people. And we'll be using the same matrix that we used last year, which was our first year using that matrix. And I'll be looking to Ms. Hubbard and Ms. Carlson and some of the others that really helped us navigate that. That was very helpful last year. So that will be coming. Number 2 is we will be doing a board retreat. There's been some discussion, I think, from members to whether to do it, before the 3 people that will be leaving us, Robin, Sheila, and Pat, if to do it before or do it after with the new members. And I really think that it's important for these members that are here now, especially these 3, because they've been here so long and have so much to offer, that I think it's important that we all hear from them as part of the group, what their take is on different subjects. And, we can certainly bring the new people on when they come on, but I think it's more important to kind of deal with what we have here and now. So we will be getting a facilitator to help us discuss that. It's really going to be more of a self-assessment primarily, and then secondarily, it's going to be norms. We're going to discuss things for the future. But I think it's more important to kind of see where we are right now as a self-assessment tool and discuss that.
I mean, is there an option to bring in the new people as well, not to exclude them, and because they'll benefit from it just like we'll benefit from it?
I didn't think of that.
They'll probably be sworn in. They won't have attended a meeting yet. But just a thought, just look at
It's possible. Yeah, I don't know the timing of everything, but yeah, that's certainly possible. Because I mean, as it's looking now, it's probably going to be after graduation. So it's in that time frame of between June 9th and June 30th. So we could certainly talk about that. It's a good idea.
So just to clarify, your new members are sworn in as of July 1.
Okay, so they will not.
You won't overlap.
But could they not be sworn in early?
No, because then you would have more people on the Board of Ed than you are permitted to have.
Unless we have the meeting June 30th at midnight.
There you go. That's it.
Sometime. All right. Okay, and that's all I have. And we can move on to committee reports, ACES.
So I don't have a report for tonight's meeting because we have not met yet this month. We're meeting on Thursday. So I will report next month.
Ad hoc school safety, Mr. DeMaio.
Ad hoc school safety, did have, no, we did not.
Yes, we had a joint school safety and health.
Well, I get confused with the ad hoc school.
Oh,
safety,
you're right, you're right.
District
Correct.
health and safety.
Yeah,
So I have
no,
a
you're
report
right.
on
We had a
number
number 5, not a number 2.
five. Yeah, so we have not.
Okay. Moving on to Kate, Mr. Kevin, I know there was some discussion via email this week regarding a few items that you were involved with.
Yeah, so I did want to highlight a couple of things. There is a CABE Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Survey that has gone out to all the Board of Ed members. And if everyone could please try to fill that out. CABE, it's a real strength of theirs to plan professional development for board members. And they're trying to get a sense all around the state of where the various board members come from with their experience dealing with diversity, equity, inclusion. So they need to first take a survey, then they'll be designing programming, and then they'll be offering it to us. As we're a dues paying member of CABE, it's a really great opportunity for us to learn from them. They also still are planning to have their Let Your Voice Be Heard webinar series. June 14th is the legislative wrap up, still to come. And then they also had in their very long email a plug for their webinar library. And this is your opportunity to just go onto that website and see any of these topics that you may have missed that you want to watch in your own time, at your own pace. You can see them listed there. And one of the ones that most recently has been posted there is a seminar they did called Names Matter. And that's leaders in action, talking about language that is ever evolving. And there was a discussion of what terminology means and how we can signal to people that we respect them by how we use the terminology that they're asking us to use. So that's really great background information for board members. There's never an expectation that all board members know everything about every topic. So this is a great opportunity to learn more. So those are some highlights from what CABE is offering us.
Okay, thanks very much. Moving on to curriculum.
Okay, yes, so curriculum committee came together on May 3rd, and we did receive public comment, which I believe all of you got as well. And to sum it up, it was from 2 community members. Essentially, one was requesting more diverse course offerings, specifically in English and history. And then the second letter was a community member requesting that we offer the Black and Latin course this fall instead of 22-23, which is where we are kind of in the curriculum cycle. And so Dr. McPadden was going to share that with the leadership team. The rest of our agenda, Dr. Byers pretty much covered in her amazing superintendent report. It was really around SBA and the next generation science testing. All ELA teachers are engaging in Readers Workshop at Teachers College, which is excellent, and a full day training. I think it's middle school. Right? And then discussion of the Amity Youth Survey. So thank you, Mr. DeMaio, for bringing that up. And I found it really helpful. Dr. McPadden shared with us too all the questions around sex. I guess were taken out this year, which I think was a really good move. And then there was discussion of the Gold Pen Awards. That's it.
Great. Moving on to district health and safety. Sounds like we had a meeting.
We did have a meeting.
All right.
So the main focus of it was try to stay away from COVID-19. It was, in a sense, nurses kind of gave what they're seeing outside of COVID. But then it came back to COVID kind of in a sense that the middle schools are using the courtyards for lunches and other activities as well, which I think everyone was happy about, which may lead to some cameras that the school may need to get, but there is a grant, a COVID grant that we think will be used. I think that was about, oh, the other topic was there's been some parents that have opted out, or not opted out, but the vaccination, there was some miscommunication on the potential for vaccinations for children in the fall. So some parents, group of parents, have opted out, or I don't know if I'm using that term correctly, but have used religious reasons or opted out for not having their children vaccinated in the fall. So that was the gist of me. Did I miss anything?
No, that's a lot of it.
Pay attention, Shannon.
Good job, Superintendent.
Thank
Can
you.
I ask-
Yes, Mr. Curley.
Sorry, can I ask a question? I'm not sure I heard properly. Were you talking about COVID vaccination or the new bill that just went through the state legislature?
That was the confusion. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was related to the new bill that just went through the state. So we had a little flurry of religious exemptions come in that we haven't traditionally had in the past.
And off the top of my head, I don't remember, but the bill addresses that in that you have to have them established before June 30th in order to kind of grandfather them. Is that the gist?
Date upon which the bill was approved, but we're waiting for further guidance from the State Department because there was some ambiguity in that actual date.
Great. I'm sure you're going to keep us up to date. Thank you.
District technology.
We did not have a meeting, but there is a monthly report on page 25.
Facilities.
We had a busy facilities meeting. There's a report on page 26. The modular building was demolished at the end of the road here on the other end of the building. We talked about a number of things. We talked about addressing the field, which you'll hear a little bit later. And there, obviously, the big project right now is track and field project. And there's been 2 meetings, update meetings for that. That was one on April 22nd. And there was one on May 6th. And those are the first 2 that's the 1 and 2 that have happened so far. There should be another one, I think, on Thursday, right there. Is there another one Thursday?
Yeah.
Yeah. And things are moving well. They were 2 days ahead. I think they had some rain. All the demo is finished. They're right on time, and there are no access issues right now. Everything seems to be moving along, but they seem to be right on time with their schedule.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. On to finance. Scarozzo.
We had our finance committee meeting, they released it for this meeting. We can go through the items one by one. But will we see the presentation again? Is Mike on now? No. Okay. So can I bother you, Terry, to just summarize what Mike Goss presented earlier?
Oh, I can summarize it.
Right here, yeah. Please.
Let's go, please.
We, Mr. Goss presented at the Finance Committee meeting, and maybe I'm thinking what Chris is thinking, that if we're not happy with this report, we will never be happy because these are phenomenal returns, not only for the quarter, but for the fiscal year to date. So all of our investments and pension, OPEB, and sick and severance are performing above the benchmarks and are doing very well.
Moving on, we had the following agenda items: 8B, discussion of possible action on contract to 35,000. We're going to go through those one by one, but you should know that Finance Committee did approve all of them.
Okay, so the first one is from this fiscal year. It's technology, and it is for leasing. It'll end up being 784 devices for 7th grade students. And though I have 12th grade listed there, Mr. DeRosa corrected me between meetings. I think 12th grade because our current 12th graders don't have devices, but next year they will be gone, and 11th grade move up, so it'll be 10th graders who will actually receive new devices in hand. But it's the last class that will get the one-to-one devices. So we have secured with ESSER funding for the 10th, 12th grade class. And we had put out an RFP. We had one respondent, and it was not the device that we had proposed. It was comparable, but it was nearly twice the price. And we found out that the Acer device we were looking for is in transition of having a new model done that won't be ready till later this year, not in time for the start of school, and will be about a 5% higher price. So we were able to secure 784 devices through a consortium bid, and we would like to award that contract to Wally Computer Associates of Massachusetts at the bid price of $346,920. That is the 3-year. That is the purchase price, and we will be leasing these devices over 3 years.
Okay, so someone like to make a motion to accept that and discuss.
So,
Okay.
Shannon.
And Shannon second.
Great.
Thank you.
Patrick.
Thank you.
Shannon second. Thank you. Any discussion on that one? Okay, seeing none, call the roll.
Mr. Belfonte?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. McCrevin?
Yes.
Dr. Turner?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
The next few are for fiscal year 21-22 budget items. The first one is copiers and printers. Our contract with Xerox will expire next year, so during the budget process. We were looking to see what that price would be and to have our current design for copiers and printers reflect the changes now that we are a one-to-one environment, and to look at the usage that we've had on copiers. So we have come up with, we currently have a lease plan for 24 Xerox copiers and supplies and for 100 district-owned and network printers. And we are proposing 25 Xerox copiers. We will buy out 3 copiers in the nurse's office because they are still in very good shape, and it actually is better for us to own those and retain them longer than to continue them on a lease. And then we're going down from printers from 100 to 20. I had budgeted a $30,000 savings for the 21-22 budget, and this brings in $37,000 of savings. It would be a 5-year lease. It is off a prepping PEPA bid contract. So it meets the purchasing guidelines, and the changes would begin over the summer break.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to accept that?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Do we have a second?
Shan?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Carlson, thank you. Any discussion regarding the copiers and printers?
What are the terms of the contract? How many years? From what date to what date?
So it's a 5-year contract. It'll start July 1 of this year. Actually, I'm sorry, June. It's gonna start in June, so we could implement them starting in June when they leave. So it'll start at the end of this year. Our first payment we can make in July, but the contract will start.
Okay, so it's before the end of the fiscal year. But we're paying.
We're paying with next year's money.
There's no other questions. We can call the roll.
Mr. Belfanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo? Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. McCrevin?
Yes.
Dr. Turner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes.
Okay, the next one is student accident insurance. Our policy expires mid-August, and we were due to go out to bid again. We had 2 proposals submitted. One was for $33,000 for interscholastic sports and student activities, and $2,910 for catastrophic accident coverage, and $62,792 for both on the second proposal. We have experience with both companies. We had our insurance consultant review both proposals, and the lowest bidder coverage meets all of our specifications and industry standards. We currently have HDC here, and the recommendation is to award the contract again to HDC here.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to accept that? Mr. Davis, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Ms. Hubbard?
Ms. Hubbard, thank you. Any discussion regarding the student accident insurance? Seeing none, call that one.
Mr. Belfanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
McCrevin? What's up? Dr. Turner?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes.
The next one is the field here at Amity Middle School Orange. This was presented to the Facilities Committee last week. It is an item budgeted in next year's budget to improve the drainage. The field had extensive work about 15 years ago, but now has regular periods of standing water in several areas, especially during the spring months. And often the field is not usable by the phys ed classes or middle school sports. We had Mr. Kevin Capsulato of Sports Turf, our current groundskeeper, develop a couple of options and present those to the facilities committee last week. The first option is adding clay infill to the field to absorb water and improve drainage. The field will be aerated and 60 tons of infill will be applied at a cost of $42,900. The second option was to replace the current drainage system, which would require excavation, gravel fill, and piping, and is over the budget of at a price of $68,100. The administration is comfortable with option one at $42,000. Both of the options presented include $3,900 to address depressed and highly saturated areas. We're requesting that the board waive the bid requirement and Sports Turf be awarded the project as well, since Mr. Capsulato's knowledge of the field is a valuable asset.
Okay, someone like to make a motion to accept that? Mr. Brown, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Cordova, thank you. Any discussion regarding the fields improvements here at the middle school?
So, if we wanted to go with option two potentially, could we use end of the year funds to, I'm assuming that this project will be done in the summertime?
Yes, the intent is to have it done in the summertime. When Mr. Capsulato presented to the facilities committee, he seemed to think that option one is actually going to accomplish the same thing that option two would. And Mr. Brow pointed out that we can do option one, and even if it gets us only 5 years instead of the anticipated 15, then we would be able to look and see what else could be done under the option two, perhaps later. So facilities supported the option one, but Mr. Capsulato is pretty confident in what he thinks he's going to be able to accomplish.
It adds 60 tons of material. It'll be brought in, like smoothed in over the field. It doesn't damage the field, the current field really. It doesn't rip it up. It doesn't, create. And then it's there forever, right? It's there. So then if we look at it later and then we want to touch a drainage issue or try to clear out a drainage, but otherwise we're digging up the field to put in new drainage and new pipe, and which may just get us back to sort of this where we have these low spots. He is going to specially address certain areas that are wetter than others, but it's a field in a bowl where all the water runs down to it. It's a tough, but I think the idea was the material, we buy it, we put it down, it's there forever, and then we see how it does after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're smarter than I am, so I'll trust you.
Mr. Capsulato does very good work, but the question that I have is he discussed it all. What the current condition of that drainage system is, and has it completely failed, or is it still working, but just not working efficiently because of the infill not being present there? Did he say anything about that? Because it's been my experience, the drainage system isn't working, you can put all sorts of stuff on it, and it just won't last. And as I said, it may last 4 or 5 years, and then we might have to go and do the same thing that we could be doing this year.
Yeah. There could be silt in there, right? It could be failed and could have blockage. Didn't speculate on how much blockage there was, and that's where we got into the special area project where he will address certain areas, and if there's something to be done in those areas, then he can maybe address the drainage. But that French drain that runs around the field, I mean, there's a stream basically heading into the field from the other side, and like I said, the hills. So it's been 15 years since they've been done. It's probably time to redo them, right? But let's try this, and then this will just add to the longevity of the next system. And it didn't rip up the field, it kept the field a little more usable in the short term.
Yeah, the other thing he was mentioning, we were talking about numbers of tonnage, and he was saying almost like a good, better, best, like 20 tons will make a nice difference. 40 would be better, but 60 is really going to help a lot, and it's still less than the budget. So that's kind of the way he was recommending going with that amount as well.
And we'll see, it's the spring, it's like it just gets wet, you know?
At this point is, it was my point too, like maybe spend a little bit more, or just look at it and fix it and put a Band-Aid on it, but yeah, I wasn't at that.
So I think the way this is worded, it makes it sound like we were choosing option one, but really, for the committee, he was really saying option one is the one to go with. In other words, we weren't voting down option two. We were willing to do option two, but he was like, let's just do option one. I really believe that will take care of it. That was the impression that we got. So we thought we would defer to the experts, take him at his word.
Yeah, he said a lot of other fields have had very good luck with this, and he's done it at other fields. It's a special soil, right? That kind of goes like on top of like the baseball fields and softball fields, kind of like the ledger sand, and has very good properties that help out a lot. He's had very good luck on other installs with problem areas like this. So yeah, to Pat's point, this is what he recommended.
And then we can do the artificial turf field later, right? Do that down the road.
Funny that.
It's orange, so it's not. Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, right? Is there any other discussion? Staying on, all
Yes, the motion included waiving the bid process.
yes.
Oh, and just on that, it's dirt, so it's kind of a set price, it's not
Yeah.
much, it's just spreading dirt, so it wasn't like it was a lot of variation.
All right, Mr. Belfonte,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah.
Mr. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard.
Yes.
Ms. Burke,
Yes.
Ms. McCrevin,
Yes.
Dr. Turner.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you.
The last one we have is capital non-recurring funds. This is the high school roof. We had put aside last year, the board had voted to put 1% aside of $495,000. We had Tremco, our roof repair specialist, to come out, and they inspected the roofs at all three schools. And we are right now addressing the high school. We have that one area of 22 sections that's in the capital plan that full replacement, we would have estimated at 1.2 million. We had to go out to bond for unless we had enough money in capital non-recurring. This proposal is to restore that area and extend the warranty 5 years. It's currently having a 10-year warranty about to expire. That process to address that area can be repeated again in 5 years if we maintain the roof. It can be restored again in another 5-year warranty awarded. The 5 other sections of the roof at Amity High School will be restored with a seamless membrane, and they will have a 20-year warranty. Some safety walkways will be installed, and some metal cap flashings will be on where we have some crumbling capstones. So all of these projects total $395,141.40 and would be paid for from the CNR funds. The remaining funds in there would be about 100,000. And we have 2 reports on, one on each of the middle schools, which they don't necessarily have roof repairs, but they have access issues and drainage recommendations. And we're still reviewing those, and we will bring those back at a later date as to what the best plan is for the middle schools.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to accept?
And I think we have to wait the bid on that one also.
That's right.
I'll make the motion to accept the bid.
Mr. Davis seconds. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none.
Mr. Belfonte.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo.
Yes.
Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard.
Yes.
Ms. Burke.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Turner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes. Moving on to item C.
So every year we ask the board to make motions to approve that we participate in the Healthy Foods Program with the state. We do get funding from that, $11,000 this year. And there's 3 motions there. You don't have to read it, but they do need to be incorporated in the minutes. And that is to say, we're going to participate in the Healthy Foods Program, follow those nutrition standards. Then secondly, we will make exemptions for foods that don't meet the standards as long as certain conditions are met. It's a connection with event outside the regular school day or weekend. It's the location of the event, and it's not sold from a vending machine. And the third is about the sale of beverages, that they will either meet the state guidelines or they will be sold under the same conditions as to at an event outside of the regular school day. Or in non-event.
So we need a motion for those 3 items on page 100. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So next, that motion.
Make that motion.
Mr. Cardozo, a second. Mr. Howard, thank you.
And as Ms. Cardozo pointed out at Finance Committee, it's really not an optional thing if you want the money from the state. Something that you have to do every year.
Any discussion? Seeing none.
Mr. Belfanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. McCrevin?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, so the next is capital projects change orders. These were brought before facilities last week. The first one, we call it 1A because we identified it, the administration, and it's actually 5 enhancements where options were reviewed last August at a facilities committee. The administration recommended 2 of those options, and the facilities committee approved the request. It's for additional conduits to be laid to allow access for additional cameras and electrical places on the home side visitors, on the home side bleachers. They total $11,000, $11,133. And then we would have if that's approved to do the change order, we have a following motion for the budget transfer.
So we're going to do these all one at a time. Did we do that?
I think we.
We made a motion to do them all at once
We did.
because they were all related to the capital projects.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we do them all together.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Full roll on accepting them together?
Mr. Belfanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
That passes.
Okay, so then the next change order, which is change order 1 from the field, has to do with the delay in the project and the increase in materials involved in constructing the project. So it's for track materials, fencing, curbing, the field base of gravel, electrical, and then field equipment. So that's a total of $59,060.13. The third one then is HVAC. So our estimates for engineering costs are coming in a little higher, so we anticipate needing additional $10,000. Van Zelms is still very much involved with the project as it's ongoing, and we'll work with the final punch list with Mr. Marcon when we're near the end of that project. All of these are coming from the contingency count in the bond project.
And just for purpose of clarity, you'll notice there's actually 2 motions that each of these needs to go through. The first would be approving the change orders themselves, and then the second would be the transfer of the funds from the contingency into the appropriate accounts to pay the cost of the change orders.
So someone to make a motion to accept these.
Yes, to approve the change orders as presented.
Make a motion to approve the change orders.
Okay, got a second.
A second.
Ms. Carlson. Any discussion on the change orders? Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. I'm not sure we're at the approval process for the actual motion, or are we talking about adding motions to that larger approval? Or do you want questions now?
To approve all three, but this is the time at which we would talk about them.
Okay, so I'll just ask the question. So I see that we're going into contingency on the project. And so my question is just that, are we at the point in the project where we're confident that this money is going to be available in contingency? Are we on or under budget at this point?
Well, this project is going to increase the budget for the stadium field, but we will still have over $300,000 left in the contingency. And this is the largest project within all of the projects we signed on for.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, we're not talking about the capital non-reserve funds contingency. We're talking about the bonded projects contingency line. Is that right?
Correct.
Sorry, the audio is breaking up there. I didn't hear the answer.
Yes, it's in the contingency that we actually built into the bond, which was put there intentionally in case we saw increases to the project that were unanticipated.
Okay, so we're just drawing from that contingency and putting it in one of the two projects that was included in the bond. That's right? Okay, thank you. That was just the clarification I was looking for.
And just to be clear too, so Ms. Loomis, so the $59,061, that's basically for material costs because the project was voted on in November, December of 19. It was supposed to be done in the summer of 20. And then the lawsuit came from the handful of residents, and that pushed us another 6 or 8 months till we could start the job. So within the last few months, with all the material costs going up, that cost the district, really, taxpayers, $59,000.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's a fourth change order, which I didn't have the paperwork when we were preparing the packet, that I will be bringing next month to the board.
Okay.
And that is to address the cost because of the stop work order, because we had large equipment on site working, and then a stop work order was issued. And that equipment would have cost more to redeploy and bring back than to just have sit idle, but we have to pay a price for it sitting idle.
Do we have a feel for how much that is?
$16,400.
So that week of delay, in addition to the 9 months of the delay for the lawsuit, has added up about 75,000 or so in change.
That the taxpayers.
That the taxpayers are, or that comes out of the bond, which we have to do contingency for, but it's.
Right,
at the
but
end of the day,
if that money wasn't used for contingency, it'd go back to use for other projects that, we have to pay
And
for.
some of it is as simple as, the price of copper went up, the price of tubing went up. Some of it is the actual materials of the signage and the netting and other things that have just gone up, and everything's getting a little more expensive and so that 9 months we would have ordered it, we would have had it, and we would have installed it. Or basically.
There's a hand up on button.
Mr. McCraven has to
Okay,
make a
Mr.
motion.
McCraven?
Thank you. I have to figure out how to get my hand down now. There it is, lower hand. So I just want to make sure I understand. So in the contract that was entered into with the vendors, we didn't anticipate any delays at all. So we sort of did not write anything into the contract that would keep us from incurring these costs with delays.
So there were provisions for, I forget what that terminology is that Mr. Dugas uses.
Non-appropriation?
No. There were provisions for sort of like catastrophic events, but there was not a provision for something like a holding pattern because of a lawsuit.
That's unfortunate. Thank you.
I don't know what vendor would agree to those terms. I mean, basically, you're saying,
Without negotiating that, I don't know the answer either.
if I was a vendor, I wouldn't agree to an unknown of 2-year wait potentially for, I mean, look at the price of lumber right now.
I think projects of this nature often run into problems like this. I don't think it's completely unheard of. Whether we would have paid a cost to have that written into the contract, I don't know, but too late for that. I just wanted some clarification. Thank you.
We're looking at $75,000, which now the 3 towns have to pay because of one town putting lawsuits and everything in place.
The
We
town
have
of Woodbridge did not put a lawsuit in place. I just want the record corrected to that.
Yes,
We
and
did put a
Ms.
stop order.
McCracken is correct that there was the original lawsuit came from individual citizens.
Okay.
It was not from the town. And the work stoppage, the second one was a temporary hold as we worked through some.
But that was from the town of Woodbridge.
That was from the town of
So
Woodbridge.
that's $15,000.
Yes.
And that was for not complying with the terms that were agreed to. So I don't know how we could argue that from Amity's standpoint.
We can talk about it another day. I just, at the end of this, I would be curious to see how much we have wasted unnecessarily, in my opinion.
I would too be curious.
It's about 75 right now.
Okay, I think we covered that. So let's move on to the next item.
They have to.
Well, so
Oh,
right,
sorry.
yeah, we still have,
We have
we
to
have
vote,
the
okay.
motion to approve the change orders
Let's do
right
that.
now.
Thank you, Dr. Byers. Yes, we have the motion, we have a second, right? So at this point, we can call the roll.
Mr. Belfanti.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo.
Yes.
Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard. Yes. Ms. Burke.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you.
And so then we would want the second one to do all the budget transfers.
Yes, would someone like to make a motion to combine the budget transfers?
So that was Mr.
Mr.
Howard
Howard.
and
Are
I
we
saw.
combining them, or is there
Well,
multiple?
all
ones,
combined.
Or are we just accepting that?
Yes, so we're accepting transfers in the amount of 11,133 and 59,061 from bond contingency to athletics, and then 10,000 from bond contingency to the HVAC.
Thanks for the clarification. So Mr. Howard.
Ms. Cardozo.
Mr. Cardozo seconded. Thank you. Any discussion regarding those items? Okay, seeing none, we can call that vote.
Mr. Belfanti.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo.
Yes.
Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard. Yes. Ms. Burke.
Yes.
McCrevin.
Yes.
Dr. Turner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes. Now we're moving on to the discussion of the monthly financial statements on page 104.
So there was a positive change in the fund balance of about $221,000. Revenue had some changes between accounts, but a net of $163. As far as expenses go, some more unpaid leave of absences taking place. Then payroll taxes adjusted for the lower salaries for the year. Medical is projected at 80.6%, I believe. And I'm anticipating $97,000, almost $98,000 saved on the medical line. $55,000 for the lease that we approved for the one-to-one. Then changes in special ed, savings on transportation and tuition, as Dr. Byers mentioned, students coming back into the district. Facilities, some savings on electricity, about $67,000, $35,000 on water, 21,000 on natural gas. We are asking for a transfer later in the packet to top off the fuel tank at Bethany, which will be about $15,000. That's the highlights of the forecast.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Loomis regarding those? Okay. Move on to item F.
Transfers under 3,000, that are informational. If you have any questions. And then the end of year transfers and the budget transfers, I actually flipped the pages. So the agenda item is transfers of over 3,000. The first one is for technology for 784 devices for implementing that lease now. The second one is facilities for the 15,300 for the fuel tank top off here. Here at Bethany, not here. I know it's full of that.
So are we on page 138 just for clarity?
No, we're on page 139 to 140.
Okay.
And then we'll go to 138. They're out, I put them out of order.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. That's right. Okay, so we need a motion, found on page 139. That motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make that motion to make the following budget transfer to cover the leasing of 800 devices as listed in the memo.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Mayor seconds, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call.
Mr. Belfanti?
Yes.
Mr. Rao?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
McCrevin?
Yes.
Turner? Ooh, Dr. Turner?
Yes. Sorry, sound is.
What the motion passes, thank you. So, Ms. Roy, we move it on to the next.
Then we have the second motion on page 140 for the transfer to cover the cost.
Okay, would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion
Ms. Carlson,
for the following budget transfer to cover the cost of running fuel tank at Bethany Middle School.
thank you.
Second.
Mr. Brown, thank you. Any discussion regarding that? Seeing none, we call that.
Mr. Belfanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. McCrevin?
Yes.
Dr. Turner?
Yes.
That passes, thank you.
So now we're on page 138, which is the standard end of year budget transfers. So that we can close the fiscal year and then we're making those transfers all through June and July. And then in August, we report back to both the finance committee and the board, any transfers we had to make.
Would someone like to make that motion? So, Mr. Davis, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Hubbard, thank you. Any discussion regarding that? Seeing none, we'll call that vote.
Mr. Belfanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
McCrevin?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
You can do a nose.
Thank you.
Two informational items. One is just the capital projects report of expenditures. It doesn't yet include the change orders that we voted on tonight. That'll be updated next month. I think we just had an additional bill coming from Save More towards that project since the last meeting. And then food services for 22, next fiscal year. The federal government has approved that all students can receive free lunch for the entire school year next year. And we expect that the state's going to follow suit and we will be filing that application as soon as it's available.
Every student will receive free lunch.
Yes. Which has been what we've been operating under
Correct.
this year as well. Now, it doesn't mean we're just giving it away free, like we get the reimbursement from federal dollars, so we just have to keep track of how many we are distributing. But our hope would be that as we were able to provide the free lunches, and then hopefully next year, if we're back to normal, we can do a la carte sales, which that's where we actually make money in our food services. But the lunches and the breakfasts would continue to be provided to students free, all students. Yes, Ms. Hubbard.
Will the lunches be handed out as they are this year at the end of the day, or will it be more?
That'll be a whole question for reopening schools. So right now in the middle schools, the students do actually kind of take their own things. It's somewhat organized so that they don't have a lot of contact. And so I imagine the high school cafeteria would look more similar to that. And then the breakfast program normally is only run at the high school during a traditional school year. And I think if we were back to normal, it probably would function that way as well.
I guess what I mean is, at the end of the day, middle schools, students are handed out the breakfast the next day.
Yes.
Even though they already had lunch for the day. Is that still going to continue next year?
That-
Be the day at 2 o'clock, we got another.
Oh, that's what.
Yeah, that I'm not sure of, because we've been able to manage that right now because we're not doing the lunches at the high school. I'm not sure what it will look like and our abilities next year when hopefully we are having the lunches at the high school to continue to do the breakfast program for the middle schools.
Thank you. That moves us on to policy.
And our next meeting is on Monday, May 17th at 6:30.
5:30,
Oh, I had it at 6:30. Is it 5:30?
yes.
Okay. I will fix that in my calendar.
It's a good thing, because you would have missed it all.
Oh, I know, okay, I know what's happening now. Okay.
Are we in person or are we remote? We haven't decided
We
yet.
usually see what the members themselves, and then we tend to go with the majority, because sometimes just me and one other person sitting in the room with everyone else on Zoom is a little silly, so.
Okay.
All right, so there are 5 policies that are here for a first read, so it's a great opportunity to provide feedback, especially before our meeting on Monday. We're still working in the 4000s, so policy 4115, evaluation and support. This is an update of a policy. The teacher evaluation program was statutorily revised. Probably, I think it was in 2016, it might have been 2015. And we put in a new plan in place, and we established the PDEC committee, the Professional Development and Evaluation Committee. They wrote the plan. And so this really just brings our policy up to date with the statute around the teacher evaluation and support. All of the language from in here, any of the teachers and or administrators sitting on the board, they're going to recognize this, because this is just what we had to do to update teacher evaluation. I did cross-reference it with our existing plan to make sure that the couple of areas where we had some flexibility in terms of review, particularly in the dispute resolution process, was aligned with our teacher evaluation plan. So that is 4115. Policy 4117.4, the non-renewal process. Again, the non-renewal of teachers is statutory, and we actually have a policy in place that I thought was a good policy. It was strong, and Kate reviewed it and said that we could continue to use it. However, we did not distinguish out between non-tenured teachers and tenured teachers, and there is a subtle difference. And so we took some of the, we sort of borrowed that from the CAVE policy of separating those two out, but maintaining the language that CAVE, when they reviewed it, said was still acceptable for this policy. The other thing is we did have to make some changes in the dates because our policy reflects old dates in terms of the non-tenured non-renewals. Policy 4117.41 is our suspension policy, and this one has been changed fairly significantly. I think the biggest idea is that in practice, we have always followed progressive discipline, but we did not have that down on paper as our practice. So that is just considered a typical common good practice when we have an individual who is not meeting our professional expectations. The other thing that we did is outline the difference between suspension without pay and suspension with pay. Again, both of which we have and have used in the past, but was not clearly designated in policy as to when that may actually occur. So I thought this was a good one to help kind of just codify what we have always typically done in terms of operating for individuals who aren't meeting our standards. 4118.11, our non-discrimination and equal employment opportunity. We did not have the EEO statement in our existing board policy. So everything else we do currently have, and it was approved by CABE and it was okay to maintain. However, I did lift the EEO statement from the CABE model and inserted that into our policy and updated the legal references, and that's it for first reads.
Anyone have any comments or concerns with those? Greta?
I had a question about the policy, the equal employ or non-discrimination, equal employment opportunities. So page 152 in our packet. I'm just, I can see that it makes the broad statement that harassment on any form or sexual harassment or any other form of harassment based on protected class status, right? That's the section under the red, will not be tolerated. And it describes any form of harassment by students, personnel, individuals under a contract or volunteers subject to control of the board. And then later on in this policy, there's a complaint procedure that seems only directed to employees who believe they have, someone has harassed them. And there's a procedure for that. Does this policy also cover harassment that's not aimed at an employee, but instead aimed at another person who is protected under that broad definition of, we're forbidding harassment by students, personnel, individuals, et cetera?
We only either have policies as they pertain to staff or to students, and students are in the 5,000s, and you'll see a note that's informational where these things get cross-referenced or are separate policies in the other sections.
Right, and we have some complaint procedures that are, this is the page behind the policy, right, in that student section. Is there something that mirrors this though? Is there like a different complaint procedure for sort of the same thing when it applies to students or others in our building?
Well, we have that for the students, yes.
Okay, so it basically mirrors. I'm just trying to understand, that it's, again, this is two places in the same policy binder, but it applies to two different things. But we're going to keep this language in, connected. So it's saying the same thing in both places, right?
Things. The big difference being, again, this one is related to personnel and employment. And so there is slightly different language because of the fact we're employing individuals as opposed to getting them as students. So I think that's why, like the EEO statements, those are going to be different from here than they would be in the student policy.
Okay. And so this policy would cover whether you're if you're an employee, whether you've transgressed against someone or they've transgressed against you. This can be used for either type of procedure, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Howard, did you have a question?
Yeah, a question on 4117, where letter F there, it says other due and sufficient cause. Is that directly from CABE?
That's directly from the statute.
From the statute.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if that leaves us open to too much interpretation, whereas A through E kind of are more specific.
Yes, but that is the statute. So, and it really is, you can have something that you just don't anticipate that could ultimately result in non-renewal.
And having that information.
Yes.
Was that a hand there? That was
that a hand, Dr. Turner?
No, I think she's just cold and is trying to stay warm.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, well, that, I guess, concludes our first reads. We shall move on to the second.
All right, so for the second reads, hang on, I have to- starting with 4111, this was sent back to policy after our last board meeting. The policy committee took a look at it again. We wanted to make sure 4111 was aligned or not in conflict with the subsequent 4111.3. And we were trying to be respectful of Dr. Turner's concern that we don't just address sort of one area of trying to be minority recruitment, that our policy was broad enough to reflect multiple different people within our community and not solely based on race. So we changed the word of heterogeneity to diversity, and we thought that accomplished the alignment of these two policies, and then was also really kind of increased the different classifications, these protected classes, these policies would address. So that was the change in 4111. And then, sorry, 4111.3 is a new policy that would now be aligned with the state's task force on minority teacher recruitment. But then it does address specifically hiring educators from different racial, ethnic, and economic backgrounds. And so we felt that those two are no longer in conflict with each other. 6172.4 was just an update. I don't believe we received any feedback when it went through first read. And and we didn't need to make any changes. For 112.8, we also didn't have any feedback from its first read and made no changes. And that's it for the new ones, for the second read, sorry.
Second read, okay. So do we want to make a motion to accept all of that as one?
Motion to accept all of them at once.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Carlson, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Brown, thank you. Any discussion on that? All the roll to accept them as one?
Mr. Belfonte?
Yes.
Mr. Rao?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard?
Yes.
Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that passes. So now would someone like to make a motion to accept them?
I'll make the motion to accept all of them.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion regarding these four policies on the second read that we're going to accept? Ms. McCracken?
I just wanted to circle back on 4111. I know we had discussed previously about the diversity of the people who live in the school district. And I think it was Mr. Davis had spoken to maybe a larger concern than more than just the people who currently live in the Amity School District. And I wonder if the committee had an opportunity to think along those lines, if the language in this second paragraph is addressing what the committee thinks we should address.
Well,
To be clear, Mr. Davis is on the committee, is what I wanted to say.
Right.
Would you like to speak to that?
Basically, we were trying to be inclusive in relationship to not only ethnic backgrounds, economic backgrounds, and so on and so forth, but all types of people that live in the district. And when we were looking at this, primarily the concern was maybe ethnic backgrounds and not some of the other backgrounds that we take in this school district. And that's why we considered that change to diversity, so it would include everyone and not just a specific group of people. We also looked at the relationship it had with the minority recruitment, and it was in that discussion that we came to realize that it's kind of impossible to go out there and specifically try to hire minorities. It's illegal. You have to set up a plan and a program which brings those individuals that will create diversity into the community. And so, you know, basically we're recognizing those issues. Am I correct in saying?
Yes, you are correct in saying that it is illegal. The recruitment, but the deliberate hiring would be.
Right.
So I guess my only comment for the board would be in placing, I like the use of the term diversity here instead of heterogeneity. But I do think that if we're placing this policy in the current time, the people who currently live in our school district, and of course we know that some students who attend the school, their families do not live in the district. They are coming to us through Project Choice, for example. But I wonder if we're missing an opportunity if we're adjusting these words. I think I like better the way it's phrased at the end, at the last sentence. The board believes it is especially important that this diversity of population be recognized. I wonder if we could entertain perhaps striking who live in the district from the beginning of this sentence, because I think that diversity in general, we don't know who's going to live in the district tomorrow, for example. So if we would just open this up a little bit to say diversity of the population or of the state, of the, you know, the diversity of the population we serve. I don't know if we could use a phrase like that. Then I guess my second question, though, was also, we spoke at the last meeting about checking in with our sending districts to see what they have for terminology in these policies. Did we take a look at the other policies?
Well, the only sending district that has something is Bethany, and theirs is a regulation.
Sorry, I know that the Woodbridge School District has been working on this. Perhaps they just have it as a draft still and they haven't approved it.
Or they easily have a policy in a different place. It's just not these two specific ones. But we did actually borrow some of Bethany's regulation for our own regulation that would go behind this policy.
Yeah.
Right. So and again, I would say when it comes to policy, it's ever living. So it's not like the action we take tonight can't be improved upon in subsequent meetings. I think perhaps when we have our larger board self-evaluation and we have some discussion of the topic of diversity, it won't stop a future board meeting from coming back and looking at it again. So as it stands tonight, I like that you've added diversity here. I think that's an important improvement here. Thank you.
Any other discussion or comments?
Mr. Belfanti?
Yes.
Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Ms. Cardozo?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Hubbard? Yes. Ms. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. McCrevin?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, pass. Thank you.
And so the last item was just informational for the board members, and kind of goes back to the question Ms. McCrevin was asking earlier. So when we did the update to, so if you'll perhaps recall, at the start of the year, we discussed there was a significant revision to Title IX laws. We had the board's attorneys completely revamp and revise our student sexual harassment policy so that it would be aligned. And then rather than completely just copying and making them change the adult one, they wrote it so that it can be cross-referenced in both personnel and students. So we just added the number so that it's part of the personnel section as well as the student section. So we didn't have to change anything other than cross-reference the policy number. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, now we could move on to personnel. We have some contracts to discuss in executive session. a motion to go into executive session. So I'd like to make that motion.
I'll make the motion to
Mr.
go
Wilson,
into
thank
executive
you.
session.
And we need a second on that. Mr. Brown, thank you. And we'll vote on it.
How about in the interest of,
That's a good question.
Yes.
Who would you like to invite, Dr. Byers?
you should probably invite Miss Loomis and myself.
Why not? We'll invite Ms. Loomis and Dr. Byers. Okay, and you were starting to say.
I was gonna say, in the interest of time, if the three people on screen could raise your hands, if you approve going into executive session, and then we will have, thank you very much, and then everybody in the room, would you approve going into executive session, if you can indicate by show of hands? Okay, so we will enter executive session at 8:45. That'll give me time, because I have to stop the live stream and then start it back up again later. So